Hello and welcome back to Newsx. I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching Focal Length, where we get you a briefing on topics from across the world. Today we'll be diving into the complex aspects of the Russia-Ukraine war. Is peace between Russia and Ukraine a distant dream or a near possibility? With recent escalations such as Ukraine's drone strikes and Russia's counteroffensives, what's holding back meaningful dialogue? We'll explore why Ukraine remains cautious about negotiations, whether NATO's stance complicates matters, and the role of global leaders like Joe Biden and President-elect Donald Trump in shaping the war's trajectory. Let's find out. Joining us is Ruslan Bortnik, director of the Ukrainian Institute of Politics. He is a leading Ukrainian political scientist specializing in state building, foreign policy, and democratization. Recognized as Ukraine's best political expert in 2020, he has co-authored over 250 bills, with 40 enacted into law, and authored 6 separate books. Bortnik has also held advisory roles in Ukraine's parliament and public councils. Thank you, Ruslan Bortnik, for joining us. My first question to you is, the latest Ukrainian drone attack in Kazan has killed 6 people. The two sides continue to strike each other. Is there any possibility of peace in the near future?
Of course, we have a huge hope for the peace in our country, but now both sides, Ukraine and Russia, are on the stage of the preparation of the peaceful negotiation, which could start after Trump's inauguration, which could start after January 2025. And in this stage, preparation stage, both sides, Ukraine and Russia, are trying to raise their stakes before this negotiation. Ukraine and Russia are trying to decrease the military-industrial potential of each other and making strikes on the enterprises, on the companies, logistic infrastructure, military infrastructure inside of each other, energy sector also. Ukraine and Russia are trying to show their abilities to make a long-range strikes in the deepest of territory to destabilize the public opinion. And also both sides are trying to show their power, to show their ability to make these strikes, to show how undefended now are the territories of the both countries. So in this preparation stage, in this stage of raising the stakes, we will see a lot of escalation of the conflict. But it's only a preparation stage. If you are talking in general situation, this general situation is quite stable and balanced, with negative move if you are talking about the Ukrainian control of the lands and so on, but it's quite stable, and I hope it will be stable till the starting of the negotiation process in January next year.
Vladimir Putin has often spoken about negotiating peace. Why do you think Ukraine is seemingly hesitant in holding a dialogue to end the war?
I think it's a part of negotiation game. Putin is very often speaking about that he is ready to negotiate about peace, because in any scenario of the peace, Russia will obtain significant achievements in this war. I am talking about that Russia is controlling near 112,000 square kilometers of Ukrainian lands now, which are inhabited more than 10 million people. And this is bigger than the middle-range European country, for example. And so any ceasefire, any ending of the war leads to the achievements from Russian side. So for Ukraine, it's much harder to achieve any ceasefire, any peace, because it means that Ukraine will lose, will recognize the losing of the territories and the people. And Ukraine is not able to do this without a significant security guarantees, without the significant restoration guarantees, because this peace will lead Ukraine to the internal destabilization, this untrust peace, this unbalanced peace will bring Ukraine to the internal destabilization. So Ukrainian government is willing and insisting of the preliminary obtaining the security guarantees, the restoration guarantees. We are talking about the money. We are talking not only the guarantees for the country, but also guarantees for the political elites of Ukraine. and then Ukraine maybe will be able to start this negotiation about the peace agreement. This now the situation is very unbalanced from Ukrainian side, so the peace for Ukraine is much harder than for Russia.
Do you think Donald Trump will be able to help negotiate a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine?
We also hope on this, and the last Trump statements about Ukraine shows us that the Ukrainian-Russian war is in the top of Trump priorities on his doings after the inauguration. Moreover, very often claims on the Ukrainian situation from the Trump side shows that the Trump has a feeling of possible success of the peaceful negotiation. I think Trump's administration has a real chance, has enough power to make an influence on Ukraine and for Russia at the same time to achieve at least ceasefire. Maybe not the final peace, because there are a lot of geopolitical competition around this situation and in this conflict, but maybe ceasefire could be very achievable goal in this situation. But there is also a significant risk. If the resistance to the Trump attempts to achieve the peace, resistance from Ukrainian and Russian sides, and also from European sides, for example, from Great Britain or from France sides, will be very high, then Trump could bring this to put this situation on the European shoulders. Trump could say that I will play in this game. It's a European war, European responsibility, European problem, and we'll be staying near and waiting when you will be ready to accept our peaceful plan, our peace model, and so on. We are ready to sell the weapon. We are ready to give some small financial support. We are not going to just to withdraw from Ukraine, but it's a European problem. And this risk is also very significant because there are a lot of sides in this conflict who are against this peace, who are earning the money, who are earning the political power in this conflict.
Do you feel President Biden has escalated the Russia-Ukraine war? Do you think the incumbent US president's past decisions will make it more difficult for the two conflicting sides to come to a compromise?
I think maybe it's not fully correct term if you are talking about the escalation. Biden is trying to save the future of Democratic Party and his personal future also, personal future of his team, supplying Ukraine now. Ukraine now is obtaining a huge amounts of money, weapon, resources, and so on. But not only for escalation with Russia. It's not the main goal of Biden's administration. The main goal of Biden's administration now to give Ukrainians enough resources to continue fighting, even in the situation of the lack United States supports, which could happen after the Trump will come to his position in the next year. Because if Ukraine will lose this war, it means the United States Democrats lost this war. And it means a very hard questions of responsibility, financial, political, and law responsibility, judicial responsibility inside of United States, because United States spent to Ukraine more than 200 billion United States dollars. It's a question of the future of Democratic Party in the United States. It's a question of audit, which was already announced by the Trump's administration. And it's not only a question of escalation of even Ukrainian-Russian war.
Why do you think that Ukraine has still not been made a part of NATO?
It's also, we need to make a very honest answer for this question. It happened only because the NATO countries are not ready to fight with Russia. They are not ready to share the Article 5 amendments on Ukraine, Article 5 of the agreement, NATO's agreement on Ukraine, and they are not ready to fight shoulder by shoulder with Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian soldiers against Russia. And also they are scary about the Russian nuclear threats, and they are scared about the ability of developing this war to the scale of the world war. This is an honest answer. No one country is inside of NATO for now is ready to fight with Russia and to send their troops to fight with Russian troops in Ukrainian front.
Do you think Ukraine still has a chance to defeat Russia in this war?
I think Ukraine has a very small chance to defeat Russia in this war, not only because imbalance in resources and amount of the troops and so on, but also because of nuclear status of Russia. Only miracle can help Ukraine in this situation. We are talking about the internal coup in Russia, for example, or rebels in Russia, or maybe change in the Russian government, or death of Putin, or something like this. But it's a question of black swans. It's a question of it's a topic of miracle, which in which we can't lead on it. We are living in a very pragmatic and very reasonable world. And if you are talking about the real situation, that Ukraine has a very small chance to defeat Russia. Unfortunately, Russia has much bigger chances to defeat Ukraine.
Do you think if NATO deploys troops along the border, it will turn into a full-blown war across the continent, maybe escalating to World War III?
I don't think so, also because the NATO is not going to deploy any troops in Ukraine. These discussions which now we have in Europe between the NATO countries is discussions only about the sending the troops of some NATO countries, but not entire NATO organization. But some NATO countries maybe will be ready in the future to send some troops to Ukraine to stabilize situation in Ukraine in the situation of possible military defeat, of the situation of possible internal destabilization. Some countries like France or Great Britain or maybe other countries could send some troops to the western Ukraine, to Kyiv or to Odessa, just for stabilization situation and just to demonstration of their presence in Ukraine. But there is no discussion in Europe and between the NATO countries of the possible sending of the NATO troops, NATO entire organization, NATO troops to Ukraine. So the real risks of the World War III is quite low for Ukraine and for the world right now.
What, according to you, could be the middle ground to strike any peace deal?
Very fruitful discussion with my American colleagues, with European colleagues, and for nowadays, from my side, it looks like the middle of this discussion will be near there. Ukraine will not be a member of NATO, but Ukraine will achieve some security and restoration guarantees. Russia will save the control over the occupied territories, and the sanction against Russia will be decreased partially. There will be a dialogue about the economical cooperation, about the Russian transit to the energy transit to Europe. There will be some sophistication of humanitarian policy in Ukraine and Russia. So there will be maybe there will be done some preliminary steps, some half steps to achieve the ceasefire. Ceasefire is a quite achievable goal. Despite of the fully resolution of the conflict, because this conflict has a lot of geopolitical reasons and a lot of regional reasons which couldn't be resolved for nowadays in this region.
Thank you, Ruslan Bortnik, for speaking to us on Focal Length. With that, it's a wrap on this episode. For more international news updates, stay tuned on Newsx.